Welcome to the webinar, Breaking It Down, Q&A about period product waste management. Happy Earth Week, Earth Month for those who celebrate. So excited to introduce my co-host today. I'm Sarah, I'm VP of Marketing at AntFlow. And for those who aren't familiar, AntFlow is a period product company. We provide organic cotton period products, free then dispensers and disposal. And I'm based in Denver, Colorado, but today I'm calling in from Columbus, Ohio. And so excited to introduce my other co-hosts, Susan Thoman and Lara Weiss. And I'll first pass it over to Susan with the Compost Manufacturing Alliance to introduce herself, her role, and where she's based. And at AntFlow, we love to do a this or that question. So Susan, I'm going to ask you, do you prefer hiking in the forest or walking at the beach?
Okay. Well, first, I'm Susan Thoman, the Managing Director of the Compost Manufacturing Alliance. We started in 2017. I'm the Managing Director and the original founder. I have 5 other co-founders, large composting companies, and we vet materials for compost facilities that make claims of compostability. So that's really what we do at CMA, but I've been working with feedstocks for many years here in the Seattle area, out in Port Orchard, Washington, and I'm a beach walker. Okay.
Amazing. All right. And I'll hand it over to Lara Weiss to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Lara Weiss, and I'm the president of the Responsible Flushing Alliance. And I am based also in Seattle, Washington, but right now I am in Palm Springs, where I'm attending a clean water conference. And Sarah, I love that you're in my hometown, Columbus. Go Buckeyes.
Yay. Amazing. And are you beach or forest?
For sure, beach.
For sure, beach. Okay. I am going to mix it up, and I'm actually a fan of walking through the forest. All right. Well, with that, so excited to review our agenda for today. We are going to be talking about period waste, some sustainable steps with AntFlow. Then we'll hand it over to CMA to talk about composting waste reduction. And then finally, responsible flushing with Responsible Flushing Alliance. And we'll round it out with some general questions and answers. Also, throughout the webinar, please use the question Q&A icon on the right-hand side to submit any of your questions, and we'll get to those after each section. And really want this to be as conversational and engaging as possible. So please submit your questions. We also have a live poll that we'll be using. So please submit your answers when we pull up the polling feature. Lastly, I will be sending out this webinar recording tomorrow. So stay tuned for those that weren't able to join it live. We'll have that recording available to share with your teammates and colleagues. All right, let's jump in here. So today we're talking about a less talked about topic in the facilities space, and that is period product waste. So period product waste refers to the discarded materials from menstrual products, tampons, pads, and the packaging. And one of the things at AntFlow we hear often is menstrual health is commonly a stigmatized topic. And that stigma also extends into this conversation around disposal. And from AntFlow's perspective, our mission is all about creating accessible period products. And we also believe it's time to have some more conversations around proper disposal. Why is momentum around period products kind of growing in terms of accessibility? With increased access legislation, we've seen over 28 states pass laws requiring free period products be available in public bathrooms. We've also noticed a big shift towards more sustainable period care options. As a consumer of period products, like I know the at-home space has a lot of great organic, more eco-friendly products, but in the commercial settings, AntFlow is really at the forefront of bringing these topics to mind and offering eco-friendly products. So really excited to talk about how more eco-friendly products and disposal is a small facility change that makes a really big difference. And with that, we will have our first poll Let me launch that here. And my question for you all today is about how many tampons and pads are disposed of in the US each year. And this poll is launching right now. So please place your votes on what you think is the correct answer. Less than 2 million, 200 million, and more than 2 billion. Put your vote in. Awesome. All right, we need a tiebreaker here. We've got it split between 200 million and more than 2 billion. Great. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share those results. Last couple votes coming in. All right. And the correct answer is more than 2 billion period products are disposed of in the US each year, tampons and pads. And I have seen some literature saying up to 20 billion. So a huge amount of products that are being disposed of each year. All right, going back into our slides here. Hope I gotta pull them up again. One moment. There we go. And another fact here is that a lot of these items are ending up being flushed. And a recent survey that our partners at Citron Hygiene conducted found that 1 in 3 women would rather flush their pads and tampons than come into contact with one of those gross metal bins that we've all seen in the bathrooms. So today, really excited to hear from Susan and Lara shortly more about how these kind of topics are so important and the downstream impact of period product and the way we dispose of them. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to chat through a couple of things that we're working on at AntFlow. At AntFlow, we're always trying to find ways to be more thoughtful about how we design our products, especially with the environment in mind. And internally, we refer to this as sustainable steps, which is everything from manufacturing to materials, how we are developing our products. And in the next couple slides, I'm going to walk through what AntFlow is doing to lead change and take sustainable steps. Everything from disposal options and reducing plastic waste to our commitment of safety and the materials we're using in our products. The first sustainability step that I want to highlight is our recent launch of our plant-based disposal bags to support hygienic, proper disposals and really keep period products out of waterways. So why these products are so great, the disposal bags are very much like a doggy poop bag. They make it easy for people in commercial public bathrooms to dispose of their period products hygienically, meaning less bloodborne pathogens and less chance of just throwing them away in the toilet. So the bags also are plastic free, which is great. They're made from cornstarch, which means minimizing that environmental impact and reducing plastic. Quickly show what that looks like. We have this nice little video here, and that's the plant-based disposal bag. It pairs very well with our existing touch-free disposal bin. Again, 1 in 3 women don't want to touch that nasty metal bin. So the touch-free disposal bin is a great way for facilities to ensure their guests don't have to touch that bin. Also great for the facility's staff because it is a continuous liner bag, which means that when you open it up, you aren't actually touching any of the waste or coming into contact with bloodborne pathogens, which is super important. Next up, we're going to chat about our cartridge products and our pad packets. This was an awesome kind of product improvement that we discovered through customer feedback. I actually am on the marketing team, so I see a lot of feedback on social media as well as on our online store. And we had some customer commentary around our old packaging for our pad packets. Specifically, they were wrapped in foil. And so last year we moved out of foil and we're completely in plant-based plastic-free packaging, which is an awesome upgrade and a great transition based on the feedback we got from our customers. Another area that we have been working on is our cartridge pads. Those are the pads that go into our dispensers. And a couple areas where we've reduced our plastic with this product is we previously had a plastic seal on the envelope. Again, like hygiene is really important, but do we really need that plastic seal? So we did some testing and we transitioned out of the plastic seal into just a standard envelope type flap, which has been great in reducing plastic on that packaging. And I also wanted to call out that within the case that these products are packaged, they come in a 500 count case. So previously we had a plastic bag that these were inside of within the case. Our operations team were able to move out of that plastic bag. And so with that, we've eliminated over 66,000 plastic bags annually. So really, this sustainability step is all about better packaging and waste reduction. The third step is mainly focused on our tampons and the number of different things we've done to make these products more sustainable. First, most of you know that our tampons are made with organic cotton. So our organic cotton is OCS certified as well as Global Organic Textile certified. A couple benefits of organic tampons compared to conventional products. Organic tampons are grown without synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. A couple other benefits, they are free from synthetic dyes, limiting pollution during production and disposal, which is great for reducing that overall impact. Lastly, produced without chlorine bleaching processes. This eliminates any safety concerns around dioxin and those types of residue. And kind of thinking about sustainability and safety, those both go hand in hand. So at AmpFlow, we are really excited. We have a couple of updates that we announced this year, especially important in regards to safety. So our tampons are now OECO-TEX Standard 100 certified. That means our tampons were independently tested and verified to be free from harmful levels of over 100 different substances known to be dangerous to human health. And we're also happy to share that our products are also free of any PFAs. And lastly, on the topic of tampons, we're really committed to tackling plastic waste one tampon at a time. And for that, we sometimes hear that cardboard tampons have a bad reputation, which we are excited by the work we've done to make the cardboard tampon a better option. And that's through the design of the tampon itself. The pedal tip at the top is smooth and it makes usability way more comfortable. Also, we have designed the tampon and recently introduced a concave grip. So this was also customer feedback. We got that there were some challenges around insertion. So with the new concave grip, we're really excited that we have even better improvements. Not only are these plastic free, but they're also easy to use. And I'll wrap us up with a quick shout out of all these different certifications we have. So many on this page and hopefully so many more to come. Even through doing this webinar, we've already uncovered ways we can improve. Talking to Laura, we identified even for our own pad packaging and our tampon packaging, we are able to add a do not flush symbol to help educate our consumers and reduce kind of harmful flushing habits for those that might not know that those items are not able to be flushed. So really excited to look into more design changes that we can make to have an environmental impact. And just like the menstrual movement, this push for sustainability is really important with the work that our partners are doing. So it's so inspiring. I love talking to customers. I love talking to our partners, all the organizations we work with that are really leading by example. And I wanted to shout out a couple partners in particular that are really committed to not only helping people with periods, but also the planet. We have our distribution partner, Citron Hygiene. Citron Hygiene is our distributor in the US and Canada and the UK. And they actually have a really awesome service where they can take the menstrual product waste from the disposal bins, and it is disposed of at an energy from waste facility. These types of facilities incinerate the waste and generate clean energy. Also, shout out to customer Paramount. Yesterday, one of our team members, Erin, attended their Earth Day Expo, which was a great way to showcase their commitment to sustainability. And so excited to always be involved in those types of events. And lastly, another distribution partner of ours, Fastenal, and their customer, Juilliard, are implementing our touch-free disposal bins in their all-gender bathrooms, as well as the plant-based disposal bags that we chatted through earlier. And thank you all for being here as well. So excited to dive into this next section we have for you. We're going to dive into composting and waste reduction with Susan. And so we get a ton of questions around our period products compostable. And so I'm really excited to hand it over to Susan to walk us through how does composting work and break down any misconceptions around this topic.
Great.
All right.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be with this esteemed panelist group. I've been very intrigued by this whole topic, and I've learned a lot from our host today, so thank you. This is the perfect time to talk about composting. This is the time of year where statistically about 50% of the volume of compost that's applied is applied between now and the end of May. So if you don't have your compost, go get it. You need your compost, support your local composter. Anyway, go on to the next one. Just again, I mentioned that we're certifiers of compostable products, but we are limited to food related products and agricultural related products. We take no non-food items. So I would say that period products and feminine products are not, you can't compost them in curbside today. But we do appreciate all the innovation in getting plastics out of consumer products, because that definitely affects our composters and can affect our composters. So you can move to the next. So one of the things I like to point out that compost programs, successful compost programs is they're really built regionally in communities. And it takes everyone to build them and everyone to manage them and nurture them along in the proper way so that we do composting correctly and we also get it back out to the environment. But the composting industry really, they're manufacturers of material that improves the environment. So they could be making plastic widgets, but they're making materials that can go back out in the environment and have a great net improvement in it. So I just like to point out that it's really a consensus-built program, and there's ways that you can get involved in your community to learn how to promote more composting. But I just like to start with these are community programs, and community relationships really matter to their success. Go ahead. So what I wanted to start with in the topic of, beginning the topic of why certain materials can't be composted is really give you a little bit of history of composting in the U.S. So the Europeans and other countries that don't have a lot of landfill space have really been way ahead of the US on composting out of necessity. If you don't have landfills to bury everything in, and if we have a lot of landfill space, it can be cheap. If you're in Europe and you don't have any landfills, necessity is, creates the innovation. So a lot of the technology for composting was really developed in Europe. And around 1990s, a lot of our jurisdictions on the West Coast and the East Coast started looking at what are we landfilling and what could we be taking out of the solid waste stream that could add to our recycling totals. So one of the things I like to say is cities are kind of always competing for the recycling rates as our sites. So was there a way to take yard waste curbside from homes and turn it into compost? So a lot of your programs originally started with just yard waste. As you moved into the early 2000s, you had a lot of policy development in food scrap recycling and organics management. So you started seeing a lot of the European technology come into the US. The company I work for out here in Seattle, Cedar Grove, invested in this really high-tech system that came from Europe. It's German design. But the reason you had to go with higher technology is as you began to add food waste to the feedstocks are the inputs for composters. As you began to add food scraps, post-consumer food scraps, they came with a lot more hazards like bacteria and certain pathogens that would come in that you're not going to get in yard waste. So there was regulations made to push the technology to a higher level to process that accordingly. And remember that composters are regulated by the health department. There's a water quality piece, an air quality piece. So you have to have all of those things work for all those regulators. So you saw a big improvement and a big upsurge in new technology around the early 2000s. By about the late 2000s and 2010, at least here in Seattle, you started having programs that were banning certain packaging that wasn't compostable or recyclable. And then everything sort of took off around, the late 20 teens. And you just saw these robust programs really getting started and taking all the yard waste, all the food scraps, and then you introduced a lot of compostable packaging related to food service or yard waste. So that's really the evolution and part of the reason for the evolution for feedstock changes over the years. Go to the next slide. But what was also happening at the time that we started these really robust food scrap diversion programs is you had a lot more plastics being introduced around food. So back when I was a young mom 30 years ago, you didn't really have a lot of small containers of cake and melons. And, the one that drives me the craziest is an orange without the peel in a plastic container. Like it already had a container, nature provided it. But we have these culture-driven convenience things. You got to grab the rolls, the chicken, and the food and go to the game with your kids because you don't got time to cook. All this has really produced this takeout in grocery retail and takeout culture that we have. But that can be the bane of a composter's existence if it migrates into food and feedstocks for composters. So we have to get these materials out of the compost to do a better job with just the feedstocks we have. And we would just ask all of you to help make sure that people understand, unless it's compostable or certified compostable, it has no place in the compost feedstock. So next slide. This is what it looks like. This was about what we used to pull out of the piles in a month at a composting site before post-consumer food scrap program started. That's about what they pull out in a day now. So in programs where you have a lot of composting and robust systems, it's often because your landfill rates are very high. Well, if they have to take this material, compress it in a Connex box and ship it to a landfill, that's an expense that the composter also has to absorb that they don't get compensated for. So that creates more cost, less opportunity to do more composting. So let's work on cleaning this up, and then we can make room for other things in the future. Next slide. I just love to tell you all the endless opportunities to apply compost and the benefits of that. Compost is wonder mulch. Obviously, we can use it in our home and gardens. It's a great way to grow food organically. I like to tell people that use chemicals in their gardening that when you use chemicals in your garden and you shoot it with some phosphorus or nitrogen, you make your plants junkies. Compost is rehab. It kind of like takes everything and puts it back in its normal state. It has natural nutrients inherent in the plants that we compost. It has the biology we want, the microbes we want for our soil, and it has the structure we want for our soil. So it's the natural base for all soils and the earth, and we really want to make sure we use it right. So the highlights that you may not know about, yes, you can use it at home. You can top dress your garden and your lawn. It's used in school gardens in the Seattle public school districts because, hey, they compost all their food scraps from on a daily basis. One of the coolest ways you can apply compost is if you taking your dog for a walk and you see those fenced bioswales in your neighborhood, that's really filtering out impurities in your neighborhood. Compost takes out petroleum products, a lot of other things, silt. It really is just an amazing mulch to clean up the environment. And finally, out here in Seattle, we have a lot of slopes, a lot of hills. It's one of the best things you can apply on a hillside to keep it from eroding or along a stream bank. So endless opportunities for composting that we just love to tell you about. Fast germination, all natural, no chemicals. Let's do it. So the next one, the final one I would, just mention in terms of its benefits. You have a lot of legislation now, that climate change legislation and organics bills that really push the use and the production of compost to mitigate climate change factors. So the Carbon Farming Project, the Marin County Project, look it up. It was an enormous study that was done on grazelands, developing grazelands and using compost, and the discoveries they had about how that sequesters carbon in these large sinks and really helps our planet. Next slide. So feedstocks that we like: yard waste, food waste, source separated, certified compostables, dine-in, food service food. Materials that we're not ready for right now are just compostable packaging or non-food related items, such as these materials that we're talking about today. And also non-compostable items that are obviously missorted. So we want to keep the compost clean and the composters in the best possible shape to keep doing what they're doing effectively and economically. But we have to be patient with some of the other streams that maybe have a potential in the future and really stick to cleaning up what we're getting from food scraps. Next slide. So I would say currently, just real practical reasons that these materials aren't taken, just to expand on that, is permits may not allow them. In fact, they probably don't. So all composters are solid waste permitted. And if they're not allowed to take it, they can't take it under the law. So it's just a barrier immediately. Next point. Health departments are often solid waste facilities, and they're under authority of the regulatory agencies like the EPA. Next point. And when you're bringing in something like this, composters like containers and food bags from your residential kitchen bucket, because it brings in a lot of food. Food turns into compost. Compost comes back to your yard. So if you're bringing in materials that don't create compost in the end, that's not really of high value or of high priority to a composter right now. So just keep in mind that if it doesn't bring in food scraps and it doesn't bring in yard waste or grass or wood, it's really not of high value relative to other hierarchies of feedstocks that are more valuable right now. Next point. A lot of times people won't buy products that had manure in them or other materials, so it's a perception problem. And when you're taking in 300,000 tons a year of compost and you got to sell 220,000 yards a year, you got to make sure everybody's going to buy it. So you don't want to hurt your market capability by having something in there that maybe a large percentage of the population simply won't buy. Next point, if there is one, I think there's one more. And then again, we wanted to, solid waste systems, there's worker risks and perception issues that could be problematic. So those are all the real solid, tangible reasons why we wouldn't want to see these materials come into compost systems. Finally, we have a network of facilities all over the U.S. in very large cities. If you want to know about what's certified or you have questions about those local jurisdictions, please visit our website. Well, it has a list of our partners where they're located. email us anytime. We take a lot of time sometimes just to help communities figure out what they have to do. And I encourage you to call or get to know your solid waste public affairs people in your hauling community. They can direct you to solid waste advisory committees and meetings that you can attend to really learn how it works in your community to be part of moving more composting in the future across the US, which we're really working on right now. So with that, hopefully that was helpful, and I'll turn it back over to you, Sarah.
Amazing. Thank you, Susan. And I'm going to kick us off with a couple of questions that we get quite regularly. I would love to also dig into a couple things that I had as you were going through it, starting with the impact of improperly disposing of hygiene products. I know you had a story at one point when we were chatting about finding a plastic tampon applicator in your feedstock. Could you talk a little bit more about the impact of that?
Yeah, anytime we get something that really doesn't belong in compost streams, obviously it's a concern. And if it's plastic, A, that becomes one of those materials that has to be out. And B, if it were shredded and happened to get you know, it get into the compost and fragments were left behind and you saw it in your yard, you wouldn't be very happy with that compost quality. So it can affect the compost quality. It can also affect the cost of the composter to do the very important work they do. And we need to keep them whole and solvent and make sure they're doing well as businesses. So those types of materials just become contaminants and cost to the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've chatted a little bit about, it's difficult to, compost hygiene products for all the reasons you listed, but there is potential to look at, pilots and see if there is a way to get the right strategy in place to make that possible. Although difficult to make it the primary focus, but I wanted to know if you could elaborate a little bit more on what that might be, and any recommendations around some sort of pilot there.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of things change over a long period of time being in this industry a while. So, what I used to think we would never do and we're doing in some way now just gives me hope for the future. I mean, our industry pioneers that started this industry are kind of aging out. The kids are taking over the business, or you're getting some new entrepreneurs in there that maybe have some new ideas. So, my advice would be if there's a municipality with a passion for doing more organics and they don't have a perception issue with this category. It's really the cities that the composters serve. And if they're a way to collect, source, separate, and to keep it separate from everything coming in, I do think there's models that could be built. If you had the right health department champion, the right city behind it, and the right composting facility that was willing to try it. So I've just seen so many things change and evolve over the years that I wouldn't rule it out in the future. Today, I don't think you'll get a composter willing to take it today, but I do think the future would be the innovations you're making, along with the innovations in our industry and the next generation coming up with new ideas and business models where everybody wins. So
Awesome. And then also wanted to chat a little bit about product labeling. I know there's a number of things that kind of help with that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how that supports the success of commercial composting programs?
yeah, so have been involved in Washington State as the regulations that were really model regulation for the whole country now. Started with marking, labeling, and color marking compostables, marking and labeling for the consumer so they know it's certified compostable and looking for that certification mark, but also coloring it for the composter when a guy's on a truck 20 feet in the air and isn't going to jump down to read a label on a cup. So the color schemes, all those things to harmonize what compostables look like nationally are really important to the receiving of those materials. And I would love to see technology upstream develop an app. We have to get upstream to make sure it doesn't come in. I'm seeing AI sorting machines, which are very, very promising. I'd love to see an app where you can scan a cup twice and know where it goes. So that's all I'll say on that. But I think innovation upstream would be the key to ensuring the material is clean.
Yeah, I love that and super fascinating. I guess my last question before we move on is if there's any final advice you'd give to any kind of business or school looking to start a composting program.
Well, if they want to start it on site, there's a lot of programs available through the U.S. Composting Council to guide you through how to set up a facility and making sure that you're doing it properly. If you wanted to find out about services, I would call your local hauling company or and see about the solid waste advisory committees and what their long-term plans are. Every 5 years or so, communities go for these regional plans to figure out, are we going to do more recycling? Are we going to do composting? So get to know what your solid waste planning is in your community. Go to the meetings, the solid waste advisory committees, also called SWACs. Be involved, ask questions, and that will probably be the best and quickest way to really figure out how to be the most impactful in supporting composting in your community.
All right. Thanks, Susan. Okay, we're moving along here. Responsible Flushing Alliance is going to be sharing now how we can protect our planet one flush at a time. So I'm going to hand it over to the amazing Lara Weiss, who will be talking us through a lot of great data around this topic.
Great. Thanks so much, Sarah. So the Responsible Flushing Alliance is, if you want to go to the next slide, we have our campaign. It's called Flush Smart. And you'll see this little guy. He is the clog monster. And he's kind of the embodiment of all the stuff that people flush that they shouldn't, that can create a fatberg, which is when non-flushable items meet with fats, oils, and grease, and it really creates like a cement-like structure in pipes and in our sewage infrastructure, and it's costs thousands, if not millions of dollars to remove. So our Flush Smart campaign is about how to keep those items out of the wastewater system and to protect home plumbing and commercial plumbing. So who is RFA? We are a coalition of wipes manufacturers, wastewater agencies, and other nonprofits that are dedicated to supporting the health of our planet and the community. And our mission is to really promote ways for people to be educated about responsible flushing. It's kind of a topic that people don't want to talk about or think about, but it is really important. And in fact, just for removing wipes that shouldn't be flushed, the National Association of Clean Water Agencies estimates that cost the U.S., really it comes to the ratepayers who have to pay it $440 million a year just to remove the wipes. And that doesn't include the other things. So it's an important topic. And so what do? We just focus on consumer education. One of our main priority is to get people to look for the do not flush symbol. So thank you, Sarah. I'm so glad that you guys are going to be adding that to the AntFlow products. Right now, it is required by law for non-flushable wipes. And you can see there it is. The do not flush symbol is required by law to be on wipes that you don't flush, and those include baby wipes, cleaning wipes, makeup removal wipes. For period products, it's optional, and but I think it's really important because from our survey, we found that the most trusted source of information for disposal comes from product packaging. So thank you for doing that. So, we do consumer education. We have 6 distinct areas that we focus on, whether it's creating materials that you could share with, your constituents or with folks. We have educational materials. We have that are both in English and Spanish. We do advertising, digital and print, and we every year do a consumer opinion survey. And so I'm going to share some of those results with you in a second. We participated in a sewage collection study that I'm going to share with you some of those results. And we also partner with wastewater agencies to make sure they have the tools they need to be able to share that with their ratepayers. Next slide. So this is an example of one of our infographics to talk about how you could flush smart. So there's some common areas of items that people flush that they shouldn't. So baby care or sanitary items. So no baby wipe is ever flushable. So that is required that every baby wipe, even if it says it's plastic free, or if it says it's organic, that still does not mean it's automatically flushable. There's also grooming items, so whether it's a makeup removal wipe or cotton balls or makeup sponges or sheet masks or dental floss or the teeth whitening strips or hair. I've heard a lot of people say, oh yeah, I just take my brush and I pull the hair out and flush it down the toilet. And it's like, okay, but what happens when that goes down your drain in your bathtub? It's still not good. So we want to encourage people to not do that. And then household items. So cleaning wipes, paper towels, fats, oils, and grease should not go down the drain. Kitty litter, food items, wrappers. Basically, you don't want to treat your toilet like a trash can. So what's the real problem? Our studies have found that it's actually, I need to update this, it's 99% of the items that clog equipment are items that should not be flushed. So whether that's baby wipes, paper towels, period products, or cleaning wipes, those are, things that should never be flushed. And that's what our Flush Smart campaign focuses on. Yeah. So as I said, we do a consumer survey every year, and the Responsible Flushing Alliance started in August of 2020. And so we used that time of 2020 to get up and running. And then in 2021, we started doing our consumer survey just to see where people's knowledge was. And we do that every year. So you can see over the last 4 years, things are going in the right direction. So people thinking that baby wipes or period products like tampons, thinking that's flushable, that has gone down dramatically. Specifically for tampons, it went down 10 points. So that's great. Anecdotally, when I tell people what I do, they're like, wait a minute, what? You don't flush tampons? So I think there's, still work to do to educate people that you shouldn't do that. And Sarah, to your earlier point about it kind of being a taboo topic, I think people are becoming much more open to talking about it and, sharing, like mothers and daughters talking about it more openly. So I think that's great. And that hopefully will help destigmatize it. For people thinking that pads or panty liners are flushable, that's kind of stayed consistent, but it's low. So that's good. And then for the amount of people who think tissues are flushable, which they actually aren't, that has gone down as well, but it's still pretty high. Next slide. So that's what people say they know is not flushable, but then we really wanted to see what are people actually doing. So the Responsible Flushing Alliance partnered with California Association of Sanitation Agencies, CASA, as well as INDA, which is the Wipes Trade Association, for a sewage collection study where we collected the sewage, as it says, from the sewage treatment plant. And then we sorted all the items and to see what was happening. And we did this in Central San in Northern California and the Inland Empire in Southern California. And Kennedy Jenks, who's an engineering firm, were the ones who facilitated and helped us create the study. And they came up with the report. So next slide. Oh,
are we going to do our poll?
Yes, do our poll. Thank you,
Yay!
Sarah.
Okay, of course. All right, so I am going to publish this poll, and the question is, what was the most commonly found item that shouldn't be flushed? So that should be launching here in the next 2 seconds. And you should be able to submit your vote. We have baby wipes, tampons, cleaning wipes, paper towels, and flushable wipes. Again, what was the most commonly found item that shouldn't be flushed? It's kind of like Jeopardy. It's fun. All right. Submit your votes if you haven't already. Okay, we're going to be sharing the results here. Last votes. And here are the results. Looks like we have a tie. People thinking tampons and paper towels are the most commonly found item that shouldn't be flushed.
Well, you guys are very smart because we can go to the next slide. The number one item we found actually was paper towels. And I was really shocked by that because it seems like people should know you don't flush paper towels, but I guess they don't. So 53% of the items collected were paper towels. 34.1% were wipes that are specifically labeled with the do not flush symbol. So that tells us that the law is requiring those types of wipes to have the symbol are the correct wipes, because we didn't find any wipe that we didn't know what it was. So that's good. And then 7% were period products. So I'm just going to do this super quick. So this is a baby wipe, and it's like super stretchy. So if that gets flushed, it's really hard for me to tear it apart. It's made with long fibers that are meant to not be disperse in water. So that would like twist around your equipment and cause all kind of problems. Unlike a flushable wipe, which just like falls apart because it's actually made with short plant-based fibers that are specifically meant to break down in water like dry toilet paper. So there's a lot of confusion about, is a flushable wipe really flushable? So I just wanted to share that information. But yes, period products are not flushable. Spoiler alert. And so thank you, Sarah, for AntFlow providing those disposal bags, because some of what we found from consumers is the number one reason that they flushed something that they knew they shouldn't was because it came into contact with bodily fluid, or it was gross and they didn't want to put it in the trash can, especially if it's an uncovered trash can, or if they're at somebody's house or at work, they don't want it to be, seen. And so having those disposal bags, I think is really helpful for commercial use as well as for home use to get people to, not flush those. So kudos to you guys for having that. So this is a picture from when we were doing the collection, when we were sorting, you can see that big area in the blue box. Those are all the paper towels. And then in the red box are all the baby wipes, and the green box is everything else. So as I said, 34% of the items were wipes with the do not flush symbol, but out of the 100% of everything we found, baby wipes were the most common, and that came in out of the 100%, 18% were baby wipes. Next slide. So here's some pictures. So you can see the paper towels were fully intact. They were, softer than the wipes, but they were fully intact. And this really shocked me because this goes from somebody's home or business miles through the sewers to the sewage treatment facility, and it's still fully intact. The period products also fully intact, and the wipes also fully intact. And the wipes with the do not flush symbol typically will have plastic fibers in them. And so if you think about like a baby wipe, you want that to be super soft for baby delicate skin. And so they're able to achieve that softness with these synthetic fibers, but they don't break down in water. And even if it says it's natural fibers, as I mentioned, or it's plastic free, you don't want to flush it, and you also don't want to compost it especially if it's a disinfecting or cleaning wipe, because then that kills all the good bugs. So what is the difference between flushable and non-flushable? So you saw from my demo that the flushable wipes are made with short plant-based fibers. They're specifically engineered to break down in water. There is rigorous testing standards, both from the wipes industry created, called GD4, as well as one from the wastewater agencies called IWSFG. Those don't mean anything to anybody, but they're very rigorous. That independent testing firms will ensure that the flushable wipes are indeed flushable. And the non-flushable wipes, as I mentioned, are made with long, often synthetic fibers, but even if they're natural, they're still long fibers. They're not meant to disperse in water, and they're designed to be durable for the project you're going to do. Like if you're cleaning your kitchen counter, you don't want something that's going to start disintegrating as you're wiping down your counter. So what do we do? How do we educate consumers? Well, we want to have something that really cuts through the clutter. Everybody is inundated with messages 24/7. And so we really wanted to tap into something that was fun and could break through, but, wasn't gross, but was engaging. So 2022 was our first Flush Smart Day, which was July 1st, the year and date that the California law requiring the do not flush symbol went into effect. The second year, we decided to have the Clog Monster make his Hollywood debut, and we made a very funny spoof movie trailer of the Clog Monster growing because people were flushing stuff they shouldn't, and then he busted out of a sewer in the streets of Los Angeles. It's on our YouTube channel if you want to see it. It's very funny. Then last year, we expanded July to be Flush Smart Month, and we had a live activation with Detective Vincent Drains and his sidekick, the singing toilet named Mel, and they were solving toilet crimes, crimes of flushing. So that was sort of leaning into the true crime trend that people are on right now. And we ended up having 23 million views on our videos. So we were pretty excited about that. And then for 2025, we're like, how can we top that? We just, we have to come up with something creative. So in 2025 for July, we're going to be focusing on potty training for grownups. And just for the potty training for grownups, we're working with influencers, and they have two things that they could do. One is come up with like a potty training song, and the other one is having their kids like do a skit where the kids are teaching the parents, because our survey also tells us that it's men 45 and under or households with children where items are flushed that shouldn't be, that they're the biggest offenders. And so resources and materials that we have for people or businesses, wastewater agencies, they're all free and downloadable on our website, flushsmart.org. So we have infographics, we have little social media tiles, we have a media center with a blog. Next month in May, we're featuring Ant Flow for Menstrual Health Month. And we also have a pro shop. So if you wanted to have like stickers printed for your paper towel dispensers or the bathroom stall to remind people what's not flushable, you could have those professionally printed. Or, we can provide you with the template for free if you want to have it printed yourself.
Yay. And Ampflow also has some really awesome do not flush signs. My favorite is the don't flush hopes, dreams, love notes, or period products down the toilet. So
Awesome.
lots of fun to be had with signage. Great. Anything else, Laura, before we open it up for questions?
We also have a newsletter that, like I said, AntFlow will be in it next month. It comes out monthly, and if anybody is interested in signing up, it's just at our homepage at flushmart.org.
Awesome. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop those into the Q&A. Otherwise, I had a couple questions for you. The first one being, have you found that any signage in particular or communications have been more effective in reducing flushing of those non-flushables?
Yeah, I think tell encouraging people to look at the packaging and to look for the do not flush symbol. What we've seen over the last 4 years is that's working. There, you know, people are used to being told what not to do. So I think that that's an easy thing for them to remember. If you say only flush, toilet paper, I think the tendency is for them to think, oh, it's just me. It's not a big deal. I'll flush a tampon or whatever. But it is a big deal because it's not just that one person. It's potentially 2 to 20 billion tampons. So,
Yeah.
encouraging people to look for the do not flush symbol or to read the disposal instructions, I think has been working. And just anecdotally from talking with wastewater agencies, they've also seen a reduction in wipes and other products that shouldn't be flushed, non-flushable wipes and period products, et cetera, from being flushed and ending up at their centers. So that's great.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I know we only have 3 minutes left. Thank you so much, Lara and
Yeah.
Susan. Thank you, everyone who joined today. Um, I want to just mention that we are going to be sending out all of these resources and the recording tomorrow. So check your inbox for that. And if you're curious about learning more about our disposal options, you can check out our website, goantflow.com. Really appreciate your time today to discuss periods in the planet. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
We have a
Appreciate.
question.
Oh, we do. Okay,
Yeah.
let's look. Yes. Oh, okay. In the Q&A,
Do,
Keaton.
do the AntFlow waste receptacles have a continuous liner?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Keaton. We do have continuous liners, which are great because that means your facilities team doesn't come into contact with any of those bloodborne pathogens or potential contaminants. And it's super easy to use. You kind of just pull the bag once you open the disposal bin, and there's a easy to cut section on the bin, and you seal it up and you never come into contact with any of that waste. It's awesome. We have some videos on our YouTube channel if you want to check out how it works. All right, we have 1 more minute. Any final thoughts, Lara or Susan, before we wrap it up?
Thanks for doing this. This is really, great. And I've learned a lot.
So have I. Thank you. It's been a great journey.
I know. I've learned so much. It's great. All right. Well, with that, appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for being on with us and looking forward to continuing to improve here. Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Bye. See y'all.
Thank you, everyone.